All right, so you're learning Japanese, and sometimes it just feels like an unbreakable code, right? Well, today, we're going to crack that code. We're going to pull back the curtain and show you the surprisingly elegant and logical system that's hiding in plain sight. We're unpacking the blueprint of Japanese grammar.
I mean, we've all been there. You're staring at a sentence, and you might even recognize a couple of the words, but how they all link together, the structure, the why behind the word order, it can feel like a total mystery. But here's the thing, it's not a mystery at all. It's a system.
So let's just take a really simple phrase as our starting point. Yukkuri hashiru. It just means to run slowly. Right now, it probably just looks like two separate words. But trust me, by the time we're done here, you're going to see them as two perfectly engineered parts, and you'll get exactly how they're designed to click together. Okay, so to really get that connection, we need to look at the overall blueprint. And I want you to think about it like this. A sentence is kind of like an engine. Every single word isn't just a word. It's a specific part, a component, with a very specific job to do. You know, there's this great line from one of the sources that just nails this idea. It says that word classes, or hinshi in Japanese, are the necessary components, the buhin, for putting a sentence together. So they're not just random words floating around. They're literally the gears, the levers, the bolts of the language. And each one is designed to fit with the others in a very, very specific way. So if we have all these components, how do we sort them? Well, this is where the system gets really cool and surprisingly logical. It's like we've got a schematic that shows us exactly where every part is supposed to go. It all starts with one big split, one simple question. Can this word stand all by itself and still have meaning? If the answer is yes, we call it an independent word or a jitetsugo. Think of words like run or slowly. But if it can't, if it only makes sense when it's attached to something else, then it's an attached word or fuzokogo. This is where all those little grammatical connectors live, like the particles wa or ga. Okay, so once we've made that first big split, there's a second one, and again, it's a really simple question. Does this word change its shape? Does it conjugate? If it does, we call it a conjugating word, katsuyo suru. If its form is always the same, it's a non-conjugating word, katsuyo shinai. And that right there, that's a super crucial piece of this whole blueprint. And boom, with just those two simple splits, independent versus attached, and changing versus not changing, we get this, the complete blueprint. This table literally categorizes every single word in the Japanese language. Just look, you can see how the independent words that change their form, well, those are our verbs and adjectives. The ones that don't change, nouns, adverbs. And check out the bottom, the attached words that don't conjugate, that's where we find our particles. It all just clicks into place. All right, now that we have the whole blueprint laid out, let's zoom in on the most dynamic, most interesting parts. The verbs. These are our shapeshifters. They live in that independent conjugating box, and they are the true engines of the sentence. They're the action words, the ones that are constantly changing to make things happen. Now, you might be thinking, oh great, verbs. This is going to get complicated. But what's so amazing about this system is that all Japanese verbs, every single one, can be sorted into just 3 groups. That's it. Only 3. So here they are. You've got group 1. The Gaden verbs, which are also called consonant stem verbs. Then there's group 2, the Ichidan, or vowel stem verbs. And then, get this, group 3, the irregulars, there are only 2 of them. Just 2 verbs in the entire language. Kuru, to come, and suru, to do. All of a sudden, this seems a lot more manageable, doesn't it? So, okay, we know verbs change, but the big questions are how and why. It's time to pop the hood and get right into the engine room to see how these things actually transform for all their different jobs. So in traditional Japanese grammar, we say that every verb has 6 core faces it can put on. Each one has a very specific job. These forms, the mizenke, the renyoke, think of them as different shaped connectors. Each one is precision engineered to attach perfectly to another piece of grammar, whether that's a negative ending, a polite form, or a word that joins 2 clauses. And here it is, you can see it all in action on this chart. Let's take the verb iku, to go. See that first form, the mizenke? It becomes ika. Why? So it can perfectly connect with nai to make ikanai, which means don't go. Now look at the next one, the rinyoke. It becomes ikei, so it can hook up with masu to make the polite form ikimasu. You can literally see how each verb group has its own pattern, changing its ending so it can dock perfectly with the next part of the sentence. It's beautiful, right?
Okay, but here's a fascinating little twist. The system is incredibly logical. Yes, but we have to remember language is spoken by actual people. And sometimes the strict, perfect rules of the machine, they bend a little for a really simple human reason, just to make things easier to say out loud.
This whole idea is called onbeam, and the name is perfect. It literally means sound convenience. It's what we call a euphonic change. Basically, a verb's ending will shift just a little bit, breaking the written rule, just to create a sound that flows more smoothly when you speak. It's like watching language evolve in real time for the sake of fluency. So these little sound hacks, they basically come in three main flavors. You're most likely to see them happen with group 1 verbs when they're in that connecting ren-uk form and they need to attach to something like the particles te or ta. Okay, here is a perfect example. Let's take the verb kaku, which means to write. Now, if you follow the strict grammatical rule, its te form should be kaku ite. Seriously, try saying that out loud a few times fast. Kaku ite, kaku ite. It feels a little clunky, right? So, to make it smoother, this sound change called iambin kicks in. The K sound just vanishes, and it becomes the so much easier to say kaite. But just when you think you've got the pattern figured out, the language throws a curveball at you. And honestly, this is the stuff that makes it feel so real and alive. There's a big exception to this rule, and it's a verb you use all the time. Okay, so think about this. The verb to go, iku, ends with a K sound, just like kaku. So, following the rule we just learned, you'd expect it to become ite. But it doesn't. It totally breaks the pattern. Instead, it uses a different type of sound change, the soku unbin, and becomes ite. It's this fantastic little quirk that just reminds you that language is a living, breathing thing, not just a list of rules in a textbook. So let's step back for a second and bring this all together. We started with something that can feel pretty chaotic, but once you have the blueprint, it all starts to look incredibly clear. So what's the big takeaway here? First, Japanese grammar isn't random at all. It's a super organized system. Second, all those words are just components, and we can sort them simply by asking if they can stand alone and if they change their shape. Third, verbs are the engine, and they transform in really predictable patterns to do different jobs. And finally, even the weird exceptions, like the onvin sound changes, aren't random either. They follow a deeper logic, which is just the logic of making things easier for humans to say. And that really leaves us with a much bigger question to chew on, doesn't it? We've just looked at the blueprint for Japanese, with its own unique set of parts and its own rules for putting them together. So it really makes you wonder, if grammar gives us the building blocks for our language, how does the specific shape and design of those blocks actually influence the kinds of thoughts we can build with them? Pretty wild to think about.